Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. An update from Kenorland Minerals, this prospect generator and exploration company with projects throughout Canada and into Alaska. The company does have partnerships with some of the major metal miners, such as Sumitomo, Newmont, Centerra. Look, there's a lot of exploration ongoing at these partner-funded projects as well as the 100% owned projects that Kenorland continues to work up to be partnered off to other companies. I am chatting right now with the president and CEO, Zach Flood. Kenorland is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol KLD, on the OTCQX under the symbol KLDCF, and the Frankfurt Exchange 3WQR. Now, Zach, let's first start talking about cash. Look, the stock has done well this year, and you've continued to issue some news releases of Sumitomo and Centerra continuing to top up their positions as large shareholders of the company. Break down the cash position of the company and anything we should know about budgets this year, any sort of incoming funds, please.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. We've got right now around $26 million in the bank. We've definitely spent a lot of flow through that we raised from Centerra this year. There was a plan to spend around $4 million of that, mostly all grassroots exploration in Ontario and Manitoba. That leaves us with around $4 million or $4 or $5 million in flow through that we have to spend next year as well. The plan is also to spend that on additional grassroots exploration. Right now it's all about just rebuilding the exploration pipeline and generating new targets, which will, continue to advance through that project generation business model. All that flow through most of it came from Centerra and the back end of charity flow through raise that we did that made them a 9.9% shareholder. Sumitomo did top up their 10.1% through the same mechanism there. So that was a big cash injection this year, which helped us supercharge our grassroots exploration efforts in North America and mostly Eastern Canada. By the end of next year, I'm just projecting going forward so people can get an idea of our financial situation. There's around 20 million hard dollars in the company right now too, and we are projecting that we'll make around 3 or 4 million in revenue through management fees this year, as well as next year. We're going to be managing a pretty healthy exploration budget from third parties too. So we don't expect to draw down on that hard dollar number much, if at all. And so it could be looking like, like we still have 20 million hard dollars in the bank by the end of 2025 too. So the company's really well capitalized. We're in a really good position financially, and we're still able to do a very serious amount of exploration out there.
Let's talk about that pipeline then, because that's what prospect generation companies do is you take on these new projects and you work up exploration targets through the type of exploration programs that you need to so that you can bring in partners. What does the pipeline look like right now? Give us a lay of the land.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's about 300,000 hectares of ground that we staked within the last year or two, mostly all in Northwestern Ontario. There is another sizable project covering the Greenstone Belt in Manitoba, as well as another 270,000 hectares that we staked recently in James Bay, as well in Quebec. In terms of what we're actually doing on the ground, this year's focus has been Northwestern Ontario and Manitoba. So we've collected about 14,000 till samples across all those projects. Again, that's around 300,000 hectares of ground. So a very large area, very systematic style of exploration. This is what we've been doing for a number of years and has led to a couple, really kind of unique discoveries, including Renault. Next year, we do plan on tackling the James Bay region as well, doing initial till sampling up there. And then probably, it could be potentially follow up on the Ontario and Manitoba projects next year as well. But again, the idea is to generate targets from this work we're doing this year and then bring in a partner, a third party to fund the exploration going forward. That's really been our business. And we're going to continue down that path instead of, trying to sole fund other work like drilling and whatnot.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I'll follow along with any of the news that comes out of some of these newer pipeline of targets and projects. I also had some questions come in on the company's royalty subsidiary. You issued a 2% NSR royalty on the South Uchi property to this subsidiary. Now, this is, again, completely owned by Kenorland, but it talks to the overall strategy here of segregating the assets that are being worked up by partners or even within the company more on the exploration front, and then having the royalty interest in the subsidiary. Explain to us how this strategy is going to develop over time.
Well, there's not a really bigger strategy at this stage. We wanted to pull a royalty out of that project. In order to do that, you have to create a subsidiary and form an agreement between the parent co and the sub to create the royalty interest. And so the idea behind that was more just being, opportunistic. While we have the project owned 100%, we could pull out a 2% NSR, and now we're free to do what we want with the project going forward in terms of attracting a partner or getting a third party in to earn into the project. So yeah, I've had other questions on that as well, whether there's a plan to spin something out or divide the company, between the royalty assets and the exploration and whatnot. And at this stage, there's no real plan to do that, but that of course is a possibility in the future. And we're, obviously cognizant of the structure that we need to create if we want to do that down the road.
What about that royalty on the Frotet project? That is probably the most advanced within the pipeline, and you already have a 4% royalty on that. So would that go into this subsidiary?
Again, there's no plans to spin anything out or to, separate the royalties from the exploration. Right now, the Frotet royalty is the main asset in the company. I think that's really driving the value as that project advances. It's a very large royalty. It's a 4% net smelter return royalty. There's a $13 million of buy down that could bring it to 3.25% NSR uncapped, which is still very large. If this turns into a big multi-million ounce gold deposit or mine in the future, then that's going to be worth, far more than our current market cap is. So that, yeah, again, to me, keeping that asset in the company right now makes sense. We're doing a lot of other exploration out there. I mentioned to you our exploration pipeline that we're working on this year in terms of the grassroots, but there's also a string of projects that are already under option or earn in with third parties that will be drilling next year, including, Hunter, Shabistawan, potentially South Uchi, potentially Opanaka that Targa has. And any of these projects could all of a sudden transform into a major asset too if there was a discovery. So I think at a certain stage, if we're successful on one of these and it makes sense to do something else with the royalty portfolio, then we could do that. But right now, just business as usual. Share price is doing well. I think we're seeing a lot of value from the Frotet royalty. And there's tons of upside in the rest of the exploration portfolio as well.
Hey, fair enough. You know what? That is kind of the growth of a prospect generator company, is to move into a royalty company. So you have the structure in place, and you now have, well, that Frotet royalty, as you said, carrying a lot of the value for the company. You outlined some of the exploration plans coming for next year. What's going on now in terms of exploration underway at the company's projects that are under some sort of JV or earn-in agreements?
Yeah, so really it's all about target generation right now within the portfolio that's being funded by third parties. So Hunter, we're completing detailed geophys. That's getting towards now drill targeting once we have that data set. And then, like I mentioned, probably a drill program next year. Centerra is funding that. Newmont looks to be interested in funding another drill program, a follow-up drill program next year as well at Shabistawan. That's a project we drilled a couple of years ago. We hit 157 meters at 0.4 grams per ton on the maiden drill program. So definitely tagged into a significant gold system up there. We're really excited to get back and do some follow-up drilling on that one. South Uchi is, can't ignore this one. It hasn't been drilled yet, but we've done a lot of work, and I think we've now demonstrated that there is a gold system there of significant scale, at least in terms of the spatial kind of footprint. This started with grassroots exploration years ago. We had Barrick in for a couple of years funding till sampling. They dropped it. We continued to, we saw a target and continued advancing the exploration there, and now we've delineated a big golden till anomaly, gold grain anomaly, golden bedrock after the summer's prospecting program as well. And we're working towards drill permitting on that. And the idea will be to bring in a third party to fund that, of course. And if we see a maiden drill program on that next year, then that's going to be a big deal too. So yeah, there's lots going on, both in terms of these initial maiden drill programs, some follow-up drilling, lots of new target generation and grassroots exploration, which is, getting the pipeline set up for hopefully new targets to be tested down the road too. Yeah, it's all going well.
Can we get an update on that Frotet project? Again, that's the one with that Renault gold discovery that happened just back in 2020. That's the project where Kenorland has that 4% royalty. Sumitomo Metal Mining moving that forward. Any updates from Frotet?
Yeah, there's been some big developments there this year. We've kicked off environmental and technical baseline studies with an engineering firm, BBA, there that's based out of Quebec. Kenorland's still the operator on the project. We are transitioning out of that operatorship, and Sumitomo will be stepping into the driver's seat at some point next year. We're still going to stick around as operator to manage one more big drill program in the first quarter next year. But as I mentioned, we're kicking off these baseline studies and engineering work for a potential decline in the future. That's all going to be contingent on what Sumitomo decides in terms of constructing that. But in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, a lot of the work is going to be focused on the permitting, the baseline studies, resource estimates, economic studies as well. Some of these obviously internally driven by Sumitomo. Some of these might be handled by us independently in terms of like Kenorland itself, as we are able to actually, put out a resource on that independently if we chose to. So a lot's happening on that project. The takeaway is, it's been exploration for a number of years, and the project's sort of taking on a new direction towards potential development, which is very exciting. And I think a big reason why you're seeing a turn in the share price and the valuation coming up based on that royalty that we own.
Yeah, hey, it's been a nice move in the share price, a better market environment as well. You're working with a lot of large companies, mining companies. We keep on hearing how these companies need to invest more in exploration. They need to take out projects. But one thing we have seen is them taking stakes in exploration companies, or like what's happened with Kenorland here, partnering with a company like you to move forward their exploration side of things. What's the environment like right now? What are you hearing from some of these large miners?
I don't think anything's really changed too dramatically in terms of their own strategies. It's been fairly steady for us over the last few years in terms of interest in projects and their appetite for funding exploration. On the junior side, we haven't had to raise money, fortunately, in these markets recently, other than the strategic investment from Centerra. But I have heard that it's still quite challenging out there. So I'm not sure the gold price is really translated to access to capital in the broader kind of picture here.
Yeah, not for all the juniors, that's for sure. Some of them still are having no trouble raising money, but man, oh man, there's just too many juniors out there, it does seem like. So, Zach, as investors watch the company continue to build up some of these targets, look for even more, I guess, partners to explore on these assets, what sort of news should we be looking out for? Is it simply updates potentially bringing in new partners for these new projects, this pipeline of projects, or is there something else we should be watching out for?
There's really just three things, right? We have Frotet. There's big milestones coming up down the road within the next 1 to 3 years that are going to be potential game changers. Then we have, a number of projects that are currently being funded that are entering into that maiden drill program or follow-up drill program. Those could be hugely material as well. And then like you mentioned, there's all the pipeline, the grassroots pipeline, which we're going to be working to bring in additional partners on to fund more exploration. So those are the three real drivers right now in terms of our business. And the name of the game here is just to keep the drills turning and find more gold.
So, Zach, what do you think sets Kenorland apart from all the other prospect generators? So there are a few of them, but we haven't seen a huge increase in that side of the market of all these prospect generators. So again, what sets Kenorland apart?
I really think it's the exploration strategy. When we started the company, we were looking for grassroots exploration, areas of low exploration maturity, and then on top of that, it's how you actually explore. So it's our strategy is driven by large scale systematic geochem surveys in areas that are covered with glacial overburden. That's how we found Renault, which I think was an incredible kind of textbook discovery that took a lot of people by surprise. And so we have just scaled that up, and we're continuing to do that type of work. And we've made other discoveries as well, nothing that we can say this looks like an economic discovery, but other significant discoveries. And surely we've also generated a lot of targets that are going to be drilled, in the near term that could turn into potential discoveries. They look like or the data at least indicates that they're systems of some sort that haven't been drilled, that haven't been explored. And again, it's all been generated from large scale systematic exploration, fairly conventional, but again, I don't think anyone's doing it at the scale that we're doing this at. So that really sets us apart.
All right. Zach, thank you very much for the update. Again, Zach Flood, President and CEO of Kenorland Minerals. Click that link in the show notes to learn more about Kenorland Minerals and send me any questions you have for Zach. Zach, thanks for the update today.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it.